We brought you updated running backs and wide receiver rankings. Now we're going to bring you updated quarterback rankings. We're going into week 9 of the fantasy football season, so keep that in mind. A lot of things could change as you are watching this video, whenever you are watching this video. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into it. We have about 7 tiers of quarterbacks.
And can I just say quickly, because we will be talking about Will Levis in today's video.
Oh, yes.
And I am so nervous to tell people where I have Will Levis ranked. Just not that I think I'm right or I'm wrong.
Okay.
Just because in a week or two, I mean, they play on Thursday, and we're going to release this video on Wednesday, right?
Yep.
So, people will be like, you're an idiot. You have no idea what you're talking about. Or like, he's way too low. He's way too high. Yeah. I feel like there's some real, this age like milk
comments
potential.
Yeah, 100. A classic from the YouTube community. And shout out to you that are out there. You know who you are.
It's 90% good.
Yeah, 90% good. Take us through your first tier here.
All right, first tier, we don't really need to make this complicated. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, the 3 top scorers in fantasy so far, the 3 top quarterbacks in everyone's dynasty rankings heading into the season. We don't really need to make that too complicated, all on long-term contracts. Jalen Hurts in real life football has not really been what he was last year, but to be fair, Allen, Hurts, and Mahomes, all those guys have 8 interceptions as we head into week 9. But I think we all view them as franchise quarterbacks for the next 5, 6, 7 years at this point. So
100%.
We don't need to overthink this one. Those are the top 3 in my opinion.
Yeah, makes sense. Mahomes, Josh, if you got one of these guys in dynasties, you guys are chilling. If you're in a super flex league, hopefully you have a solid QB2. Take us to our second tier.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, originally I actually had the tier 1 and tier 2 combined in one tier at 6 total quarterbacks.
Okay.
5 total quarterbacks. But I felt like I wanted to just distinguish a little bit Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts.
Okay.
And
that makes sense.
Done so far this year.
Yeah.
I really wanted to put Herbert in that tier 1, but maybe I chickened out. I thought I'd get too much hate. But anyway, we got Herbert here. We got Burrow. And we got Lamar Jackson. Again, I really, really was thinking about putting Herbert and Burrow in that top tier, and I think you could absolutely make a case for it. But Herbert's been great pre-finger injury, and even throughout the finger injury, he's played well. He's just not had the touch that he's typically had. Burrow, a guy that we were buying, you and I, Badaki, in Dynasty Leagues. People were freaking out.
Absolutely.
Oh, my God. What do we do with Joe Burrow? People would approach me if I had Burrow and try and get him at a discount. I'm like, come on. You know I'm not that guy. I'm not going to panic sell Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
But people who sold Joe Burrow, I don't think they regret it. It just depends on what they got back in return. But people who bought him should feel great right now.
I would even say...
And then Lamar Jackson at the end of there, just having a great year. Actually a very, very accurate quarterback. If you look at completion percentage this year, Lamar Jackson is 3rd. He's one of 4 quarterbacks over 70% of his passes being completed. And honestly, that number could be higher when you account for the amount of drops that he's had on his team so far.
Oh my goodness.
He's been one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL thus far, and even more accurate than Tua so far. So anyway, yeah, he's playing at an elite level, undoubtedly.
Yeah, no, it makes sense there. One thing I wanted to say about Lamar, kind of picking back off of what you're talking about with Joe Burrow, is that a lot of people were a little bit skeptical of having or trying to have Lamar Jackson on their team, because coming into this season, he didn't have that contract extension. He was going to be holding out. A lot of people were selling him. And if you did hold on to him, I think we both kind of said, you're going to hold on to him. Even if he goes to another team, he's going to be great. We were hoping he goes to Atlanta Falcons. That didn't happen. He stays with the team. Joe Burrow here, even though he struggled through the first couple weeks, is still, in my opinion, a top quarterback, and is going to be finishing as, a top quarterback. He's nowhere near. He's quarterback 23 right now, but you have to understand with the context of him and the calf injury, I can easily see him finishing as a top 7 quarterback as the season continues. Once again, we're going into week 9 of the fantasy football season. So a lot of things can change as we are currently. So yeah, look, I completely agree with all 3.
If you have, 2 of these 6 quarterbacks, you're instantly competing for a championship in your dynasty league in a super flex format, right?
Yeah.
I will say there was a moment I was a little nervous on Lamar this offseason, just being candid. You know,
Sure.
I was
I think
slightly
a lot of
concerned.
people were. Yeah.
Just wasn't sure what was going on in Baltimore. It was weird vibes. He was negotiating his own contract, but I mean, he got his bag, so props to him, and he's playing out of his mind right now.
Yeah. Yeah. One other player I kind of want to talk about, and maybe this is kind of a good segue to tier 3, because I'm assuming you might have him going into tier 3, because I have him in my tier 2.
Okay.
And maybe this is jumping the gun, but that's Tua. And I know this is your tier list, and you might have him in tier 3, but I just really wanted to give him praise, because I actually do believe by the end of this season, if he makes the playoffs, which it looks like he's going to, if he does win a playoff game, Tua has been playing lights out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Tyreek Hill, Waddle, Devon, who has been missing some games. I mean, he leads the league in yardage right now. He leads the league, if I'm not mistaken, or not leads the league in yardage, but in completions as well. I could be wrong about that. I'm just maybe talking off the top of my head. But yardage right now is a pretty big one. And he is slinging the ball here with Tyreek Hill, him making history as well. So I think Tua is going to continue to improve. I think he is going to get this contract extension. He's going to have, Tyreek Hill for at least the next 3 years, according to his contract. You assume they get Jalen Waddle. Their defense is great. So I kind of wanted to give him praise in being in my tier 2, because this is somebody that I think we were saying that you guys should be buying on the low. He was going, in the 4th, 5th round in Dynasty startups, because people were skeptical about him. So I'm really excited about Tua.
Yeah, no, I love Tua as well. He was the first quarterback in my tier 3 there.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Big
that
fan
makes
of
sense.
Tua as well, for sure. All the things that you said, I would back.
Okay, awesome. Well, then take us to your tier 3 then.
Yeah, Tua would be the first guy, but I can understand. As good as Tua is, I just don't. Here's my issue with him being in tier 2. If you have Justin Herbert and I send you Tua, are you accepting that trade? Probably not. What if I sent you? What if I wanted Joe Burrow and gave you Tua? I don't think you'd do that. What about Lamar? I don't think you would do that either.
Right.
That's the issue that I had putting him in that tier.
And that's fair. Yeah. Makes sense.
I can definitely understand where you're coming from, and he has been incredible. And he is unquestionably a top, 7 quarterback in Dynasty. I don't think he should be anywhere outside of that. If people want to have him in a specific tier, maybe I'm downplaying him. Maybe some people would trade Lamar Jackson to get Tua. I just know that I personally wouldn't trade any of those.
And that makes sense. I understand.
Yeah. But we've also got Trevor Lawrence. We've got C.J. Stroud. We've got Anthony Richardson and Kyler Murray, as well as Bryce Young. Lots to talk about here.
Yeah.
Lots to talk about. And we are, honestly, guys, Dynasty rankings are, I'm not going to say they're pointless in season, but they're very volatile, and they will change quickly with injuries, with trades, with poor performances, but this is how it currently stands for me, this tier 3. I'm not ready to give up on Bryce Young. I know, through the first 3 weeks, we had people in our comments on this channel saying he's a bum, he's a bust, he has no value, and it's hilarious because the guy has 7 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. You would think, based off of the way people are speaking about Bryce Young, he would have like 2 touchdowns and 10 interceptions at this point, and just not even looking good on the field. I've seen plenty to tell me that Bryce Young is going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. It's just not his time yet. The offensive line hasn't performed. The run game has been mid. Miles Sanders has been mid. His top receiver is a 33-year-old Adam Thielen.
Right.
So, no, I'm not ready to give up on Bryce Young, especially when we preach that we need to give quarterbacks at least 2 years. Wait and see what they do into their second year. I'm not ready to go ahead and give up on Bryce Young, a guy that was being drafted in the top 4 of everyone's Superflex drafts. As for Anthony Richardson, some people might be upset that I have him this low. I don't really know. Like, there's probably a wide variance here with him. Look, the 2 games that Anthony Richardson played, on a per game basis, on those 2 games where he was fully healthy, he would be the quarterback 1 on a per game basis. The concern for me is still, can he develop into a good NFL quarterback? For fantasy, that's not the question. But we saw
Yeah.
kind of what we saw on tape in the NFL. Super athlete, super freak human, incredible runner, but pretty inconsistent. At times, quite inaccurate. So that is still something that is relatively concerning for me. I don't know where you stand on that, but I'm not sitting here saying he can't be a top 3 quarterback in fantasy, but we still have concerns, and all that growth we were wanting to see from him this year, now we don't have the privilege to go ahead and watch that. So I do have CJ Stroud ahead of him, and it is a close call, but I know that CJ Stroud has longevity in this league based off what I've seen. I just know that to be true.
Yeah.
And then Trevor, we still believe in Trevor there. A little bit of fatigue on the name, but I still believe in him as one of those top assets.
Yeah, everyone here kind of makes sense. I guess starting off with Anthony Richardson, it's not that I am skeptical about him. I do believe he will be a good quarterback, and I think a lot of people have always said he's going to be a good fantasy quarterback, but not sure how he's going to translate as being how good of a quarterback he's going to be in real life NFL. And I think we say that all the time, but do we really understand how long a quarterback that's good in fantasy, quote unquote, and not good in real life, how long does that truly last? Right? Do we want to, not saying we shouldn't invest in Anthony Richardson, because I have plenty of Anthony Richardson, but just questioning maybe it's best to wait until he develops and maybe pay the premium rather than paying the premium before he actually develops. If that makes any sense. I
get where you're coming from. I mean, I think it's
tough. It's a tough,
little too premature to be let's not invest in him at all, because he does have a good coaching staff. But my concern is more, you will not see any progress in that part of his game for at least a year. Do you know what I mean?
Right, but the thing is, if you don't see that progress in a year, then it's already questioned and his value drops immediately as a real life quarterback.
Well,
even in the league.
Let's put it this way. Would you trade Anthony Richardson away for Tua, Trevor, or CJ right now?
I would. Yeah, I would. 100%. I would.
Would you trade Anthony Richardson away for Kyler Murray and you get a second in return?
Yes.
Would you do Anthony Richardson, getting in return Bryce Young and a first? You send Anthony Richardson and a second.
Yes, I would take Bryce Young.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's how you approach it there.
I think it's just because, once again, maybe this is something that I'm learning, questioning how long is that real life longevity going to last in the NFL for the quarterback itself, and not.
I think the thing to consider there is the coaching staff is all in on him. The organization is all in on him. They brought in this staff to work with him, So as long as those guys are in the building, I think he's got a chance.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And with CJ Stroud, I guess you guys know in the Dynasty channel, I was on CJ Stroud. I was second guessing the coaching staff. I kind of believed in Frank Wright a little bit more. It's crazy because it looks like this coaching staff is already struggling in Carolina.
Oh yeah,
and
this could be the worst coaching staff in the NFL.
Exactly, and I was kind of leaning heavily on that because of the history we saw on that, and I was never knocking. I feel like I did get a lot of criticism, but I feel like a lot of people weren't on the same page with C.J. Stroud, not you specifically. A lot of people saying that C.J. Stroud was going to be the thing because he was an Ohio State quarterback, right? So
yeah, but I don't know. I think people just wanted you to stick to your guns.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Maybe that's a growth process as we get better at what we do.
And that's fine, and that's absolutely fine. But
because imagine if you'd be like, see, told y'all, But it's you were kind of in, but then you were out.
I guess I was always in on the prospect. I was out on the landing spot.
Yeah.
I think that's the way. That's the best way I can say it.
Yeah,
because my thought process never changed on CJ Stroud of the talent. My thought process changed on the landing spot and how good how questionable I expected, DeMeco Ryan to, develop a quarterback with his quarterback team compared to Frank Wright with Josh McCown, who has the history of developing quarterbacks. So anyways, just a little thought process there.
And again,
I know a lot of people.
it is far too early to determine what CJ Stroud or Bryce Young are in the NFL already. It's far too early.
Yeah.
Stroud could have a poor second half of the year. Bryce could ball out.
Exactly.
Anthony Richardson could be the MVP next year. So
Mm-hmm.
it's far too early, but this is how I would currently rank them.
Yeah, love it.
And
Love this
yeah,
tier.
yeah.
All right, take us to your tier 4 here.
Okay, tier 4, Justin Fields, which I'm sure we'll have some conversations about. Jared Goff. And then how about Big Cock Brock Purdy? A guy that I have been encouraging y'all to buy all offseason. Hopefully you got some stock because there's no way you're getting him for a second round pick in Superflex anymore. But yeah, Brock Purdy, a guy that I was really loving coming into the year. Talked about him, told you guys to buy him in multiple videos. And look, he's had a couple bad games, but I feel like we don't really I'll say this. I feel like the general public doesn't give Brock Purdy the same grace that they would any other quarterback who is 16 games into their career, 17 games into 18 games into their career. I don't feel like we give him the same grace. I'm still in on Brock Purdy. Yes, he had a bad couple of games. I'm not going to say that it was all on the concussions, but there is like a 90% sample size that tells us he's going to be a good quarterback for this team. He is on a super cheap contract. It would make almost no sense for them not to keep Brock Purdy during this run that they have. And if we're playing, Dynasty in the span of like a 2 to 3 year window, then I think he's just as valuable as a Justin Fields, a Jared Goff. So that's where I currently stand on that. As far as Justin Fields go, I'm curious what questions you have because we've had conversations off air where I've not hit the panic button on Fields, but I've started to see a path that I don't like in the sense of what is the likelihood that the Bears keep him, even as good as he's played, if they have 2 top 5 picks. Right. And if they don't keep him, where does he go where we just blindly believe that the talent is going to work out? With a coaching staff that didn't have to spend a first round pick on him, that probably gets him at a discount. It's tough for me. So I don't know where you stand on that.
Okay. So are these your 3 quarterbacks for this tier?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. So let's start off with Justin Fields because I have been thinking about this and I'm getting excited for Justin, to be honest, as a Justin Fields owner, because if they do have 2, let's say they have 2 out of the top 5, you expect one of the 3 quarterbacks or one of the 2 quarterbacks in Caleb and or Drake May, right? So you either move on from Justin Fields, who this GM didn't invest in, and he moves to another GM who invests in Justin Fields. So, for example...
But what is he going to invest? A 3rd round pick? A 2nd round pick?
I think that really depends on how Justin Fields ends this year. Yeah. And it could be a 2nd or 3rd round pick. And I think if it's a 2nd or 3rd round, I still have trust in that because that could be...
See, I don't.
For me, I think if he goes to, here are a couple teams. If he goes to Denver with Sean Payton, if he goes to Green Bay, not even Green Bay, Vegas, because who has been struggling at the quarterback position, maybe Josh McDaniels is no longer there. If he goes to New England, who is also questioning their quarterback situation. If he goes to there are teams that he can go to that I am saying if he goes to the Vikings, right? I think that is a really strong team because at the moment the Vikings, obviously we're only 9 weeks in, they're 4-4. They have the 20th pick. They can easily jump into the top 10. But do they really love another quarterback in that class more than Justin Fields? You think about Bo Nix. You think about J.J. McCarthy. I'm not saying they're bust or bad, but I think as an overall talent, and from what I know right now with my scouting process that I haven't done fully %, I think I still want Justin Fields. And that may change later on. But I think Justin Fields does have a good pathway to a good second chance where teams are going to be developing him.
This is the issue. Talent has never been. No one has ever claimed Justin Fields isn't talented. That's never been the issue.
So then he goes to. I think that's exactly my point. If you're going to say what I think you're going to say.
Well, what do you think I'm going to say?
Well, I think you're going to say talent was never the issue. It was the coaching staff, the upbringing.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like it would. Not that it would have happened by now, but there's just an expiry date on these. Like, for example, name a quarterback that was drafted in the top 15 of the first round that was traded for less than a first round pick that has been successful for fantasy football in the last 20 years?
Yeah, I mean,
I cannot think of a name. I can think of Drew Brees, who was traded to the Saints. But if we're going to start naming outliers, it's like, okay, do we want to bet on an outlier situation? And if he goes to, like, so for example, the Raiders, name a team that gets a new coaching staff. That coaching staff is going to put their life on the line to try and
I think
build Justin Fields into their franchise quarterback.
Sure.
Instead of looking at alternative options where they don't have to give up a draft pick. I don't know. It's I love Justin Fields. I'm obsessed with this dude. I love this guy. I want him to succeed. If he plays up and down the rest of the year, I think he'll get a shot, but it's like the beginning of a bounce around the league, and that's concerning to me.
The thing is,
there's not the same security as a Goff. There's not the same security as a Purdy.
No, absolutely not. But I think if he goes into when he went to the Bears, everyone's initial reaction was that this is terrible for Justin Fields.
Yes.
Because of what? The coaching staff.
Sure.
And if he does go to a coaching staff that is going to reset, that doesn't have a top 10 pick, that's why I think the best fit right now at this moment, like I said, is the Vikings, because they're outside of that pick and you expect them to rise higher into this ranking.
That idea is really fun to think about until you realize that all these teams are trying to win on rookie contracts, and they don't get to reset their window. A coach who goes and trades for Justin Fields, you have a year to decide if he's your guy? That's just, I don't think an organization's going to like that. I don't think a coach is going to want to say, I get my chance to be a head coach. Let me get 1 year tied to Justin Fields. I can do it. I don't know. I mean, I just think they would. There might be less talented players in the draft, but I have a 4 or 5 year window here to make this guy a serious playoff contender around the team I'm going to build around him. And you don't get to reset Fields' contract. You don't get that rookie contract anymore.
And I think that's why there's so much upside there, because you can still draft a quarterback. If how deep this quarterback class is, and you're saying, let me go send a second or a third for Justin Fields, and whichever one you don't send, you do get a quarterback. So,
well, that is going to cause so many problems in your locker room.
And specifically so in Dynasty as well, right? Like, and it also depends on the quarterback that team gets. Like, if they get a Jalen Daniels, if they get a J.J. McCarthy, whoever, Quinton Ears.
I mean, that sounds like worst-case scenario for me for Justin Fields.
And that's fair. And this is a long-winded conversation, but I think a lot of people want to have this conversation. But we are stuck with time here. I love Jared Goff, Brock Purdy. There's no doubt about it. He's going to continue to be this guy on a rookie contract still. Mr. Relevant, and they're just going to continue to build.
Have you ever seen a more hated last ever pick in the NFL draft? By the way, I think the strangest reasons.
What bothers me?
It's all the Trey Lance people. I was a Trey Lance guy, and I love Brock Purdy, but I feel like the hate out there is from all those Trey Lance people who can't let go.
I think what's so annoying is that why can every team just develop quarterbacks the way the 49ers do?
Well, Brock Purdy just had a lot of time in college, and I don't think he...
Sure.
I'm not going to say he's a system quarterback, but you put him in Washington, he's not doing this. You put him in Carolina, he's not doing this. So
this is what I would say. I think he is a younger... I don't think he is a pillar dynasty quarterback. I think he is a Kirk Cousins in a younger age that could...
I think if Kirk Cousins was his age, you would say that is a dynasty pillar quarterback.
Maybe. And because we haven't seen Kirk Cousins at a younger age in his prime, essentially.
He played pretty well in Washington, but not.
I guess it was a little bit. It was a little bit longer down the road. I guess it was really just a year or 2 years down the road after that. But yes, look, love Brock Purdy. Love what we can see from him. Love what he's doing. This team is going to be great for a couple years down the road. So I'm not stressed about it here. So love the conversations. Take us to your tier 5.
All right. Full transparency. I have no idea where to rank Deshaun Watson. I have he has looked awful. The only reason we are still hanging on for hope is because we have seen him look elite at one point. and he has a ridiculous contract that there is no scenario in which the Browns get out of. So that's the only reason for hope. Sam Howell, I said this on my Twitter, but Washington fans haven't been excited about quarterback play like this since Kirk Cousins.
Right.
He's had a couple really bad games, but overall, he makes some throws that are like, wow, that kid just made that throw. You are kidding me. He put the ball there. He's an exciting name. He's an exciting name for me. I would have Dak Prescott here. And this is where I currently have Will Levis.
Here we go.
I have no idea where to rank him, but the rest of this list, Geno Smith, Russell Wilson, and Jordan Love. Jordan Love is a guy that, it's funny because it's come full circle with Jordan Love for me, Badaki. You know this.
Yeah.
He was a player that I was encouraging people to stash for multiple years. It was like, okay, you're saying the same thing, Zach. Like, can you give us new content? And I was like, guys, the best stash is still Jordan Love. Stash Jordan Love. And then it came to a point this year where the price was so high, if you didn't sell, it was like, what are you doing? We had people valuing him as a top 10, top 12 quarterback in Dynasty. And based off the play I was watching, I had already sold all of his stock, so I didn't have my heart in it. And I was like, I know he's throwing a lot of touchdowns, but there is some concerning stuff on film. And he could develop into a very good quarterback, but man, there's a lot of inconsistencies. It's kind of everything that we saw coming out of college is still a little bit of an issue. But Will Levis, the way I'm rationalizing this is, would I rather take a shot on a Will Levis who looks incredible in his first start, or have the safety of a Geno Smith, the safety of a Russell Wilson? I think I'd rather take the shot on the guy who has a little bit of an unknown, but we see the upside. But when it comes to a guy like Dak Prescott, I'm like, I could see Dak being the starting quarterback of the Cowboys for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And that's where it's concerning for me. Like, this is where the drop-off is in this tier. I mean, some people might make the case that he should be all the way ahead of this tier. Some people might put him in tier 4. Someone on my Twitter said, do we trade Justin Fields away for Levis? I was like, ooh, I don't think I can do that yet. So there's a level of risk management here. And if you're a risk it for the biscuit player, maybe you'll go out and, make a deal for Will Levis. You could really regret it in 3 weeks, or you could feel like an absolute genius in 3 weeks. There's a lot of volatility there. So.
Yeah. I mean, look, I completely agree. I think you have, this is what I would say. If the Titans somehow don't have a top 10 pick where they really love a quarterback and they really want to move up to get somebody they do like, Will Levis, I believe, is the quarterback at least for next year and maybe the year after.
Yeah, agreed.
So
what happens though if tomorrow, because so much could change, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow he goes out and throws 3 interceptions. We're like, oh,
that flips it again. But like,
this is why he's behind Malik Willis. He was.
Yeah.
And there's so much variance.
I completely agree. I think there is, and I think it's so early because we only had one sample size. Incredible game, though. Over 34 fantasy points, 4 touchdowns. He scored more touchdowns than Ryan Tannehill has played in, the first 7 games. And Will Levis threw 4 touchdowns in 1 game.
I'll make a promise, though. I promise you he's not scoring 4 touchdowns against the Steelers. We would agree, right?
I would say he's throwing. I think he's throwing 2. But yes, he's not scoring 4.
That's double 4.
Yeah. But yes, Will Levis, a very interesting prospect. Deshaun Watson, he's been injured.
Yeah.
He has been looking bad, though, but he's been injured as well, which is hard to kind of navigate.
Bad vibes, dude. I don't think anyone in the NFL wants to see him win.
No, not at all. No one.
I'm not even sure Browns fans wants to see him win. I could be wrong. But hey, let's just quickly say on Will Levis, by the way. I would love anyone out there who knows of a content creator who has been all in on Will Levis, and all the way up until last week's game, they were all in. They were saying, "Go buy him, go buy him." Let us know in the comments, because I want to give that person, if that person exists, I want to give them props for real, because that's impressive. What I will say is, if you guys are seeing anyone on your timelines who are like, "I was right about Will Levis," you guys were all wrong. You guys are all haters. You should have been on Will Levis. I don't believe those people are being honest and true with you. I don't think a single soul was talking about Will Levis in Dynasty, telling people to buy them, or, saying they were all in on that player after the reports from camp. So, anyway, want to give props to someone. But if all I'm saying is if you're seeing people on your timeline claim that they knew this was happening, be very careful listening to those kind of people.
Yeah. Shout out to the Will Levis believers there. Sam Howell, I understand. I think
Who magically appeared out of nowhere.
I know. I think the one player on this tier that I kind of want to elaborate on a little bit, not too much, is Jordan Love. Because they currently have a top 6 pick once again going into week 9 of the fantasy football season right now. If the season were to end, they do have a top 6 pick in the NFL draft right now, and I do believe if they have the opportunity to get a quarterback they love, I can see them moving on from Jordan Love.
I could too.
You know, this
he's gonna play his way into a job or play his way out of one.
100%, and that is, I don't think the Green Bay Packers organization has any fear in investing in a top quarterback that they love in coming into this draft, whatever price they have to pay. So if you do have Jordan Love, I actually do believe that it is time to move on from Jordan Love. I think I will say this right now. If he does have 2 strings of good games, you need to see what you can get for him. I think a second. I don't think you can get a first for Jordan Love. If you can get a second, I'll say a mid second. I think that is exactly what you need to do after week 9, right? You know, like as you're watching this video, Jordan Love has 2 games, 25 plus. Maybe he finishes as a top 10 quarterback in those 2 weeks.
He's still putting up fantasy points.
He's still putting up.
That's what gives you hope to sell him.
He's still doing it.
Ideally, I would actually look at selling Love and like a late second for a first. I'll take like any first, if that makes sense.
And look, that can work as well.
I'll use him as a piece to kind of turn a second into a first.
Yeah. So, look, I agree with Jordan Love. Or
if you can get a first, that's ideal, right?
Yeah, if you can get a first, that's ideal. So, it's very interesting here. So, love the tier. Take us through your tier 6.
All right, tier 6, it starts to get messy.
Here we go.
Danny Dimes, I'm sorry, Badaki, but he has... I don't want to give up on the guy, but...
We'll have a conversation.
It's a rough city out here. Matthew Stafford, who has looked great this year. Derek Carr, who, if you roster, you can start him as a quarterback too, but you certainly don't enjoy having that guy on your team.
Absolutely not.
Kirk Cousins, this is where I now have him ranked after the Achilles. We'll talk about that. Then Aaron Rodgers. That's my tier 6. I want Kirk Cousins to be in tier 4. I want him to. Mm-hmm. If Kirk Cousins was healthy and he had a 3-year contract with the Vikings, he'd be in tier 4. He'd be right by Brock Purdy, if not ahead of the kid, right?
Yeah.
Based off of his play so far. But that's not the reality we are living in. We are living in the reality where he does not have a contract next year. He just tore his Achilles. He's getting up there in age. We don't know if he'll be a Viking next year. We have no idea where he will play. What I will say is I would be, if I'm like a 1-year punt, there is not a better buy right now in Dynasty at the quarterback spot than Kirk Cousins. Because I believe he'll have a job. I believe he will play somewhere. So again, if you're out there and you're a 1-year punt and you are looking for a quarterback too, go try and buy some Kirk Cousins. I've seen people trade him for multiple thirds. So I'm not saying that will happen everywhere, but go out and see what you can do. And as far as Aaron Rodgers, I don't want to bury him into the rankings because he seems pretty determined to prove a point.
He's coming back, baby.
And I think, before this year, we were saying you got at least 2 years. I still feel the same. I don't think
100%.
Next year is a one and done for him. He's got a lot of fire still left in him. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think Aaron Rodgers is. I do believe if the Jets have a window to make it to the playoffs and it's week 18 and they need to win a game and Aaron Rodgers is somehow back by then, I can see him playing that. Or if they make the playoffs, Aaron Rodgers can play that wild card game, which sounds crazy to me right now, but he is looking phenomenal. I agree with Kirk Cousins. I think he does get a job in the future. Derek Carr, another team I can see moving on from their coaching staff and or Derek Carr alone. I don't know.
I think Carr will be their quarterback next year. I don't see them.
I don't know his cap hit though.
Derek Carr next year.
Yeah, I'm not sure what his cap hit is off the top of my head, which is very interesting to me. And
I want to know your thoughts on Daniel Jones. Actually, that's who I want to know the most. You're a Giants fan.
This is what I would say. If the season ended right now, I am okay to move on from Daniel Jones. I don't think he is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, but I don't think he is an irrelevant quarterback. I think he is a quarterback that can get you wins. He's just needs to have the foundational pieces around him. Number one,
Right.
offensive line. If you look, we have had the most changes in the offensive line through 9 weeks. We lost Andrew Thomas week 1. We lost our center. Evan Neal is not looking the way we thought he was going to look. And we don't have a left or a right guard. He doesn't have an offensive line. The game that he does have an offensive line, he put up 35 points. That is Daniel Jones with time. That's like saying, well, Eli Manning is terrible if he doesn't have an offensive line. Yeah, because he was bad if he didn't have time. That is Daniel Jones, which doesn't excuse other quarterbacks that don't have other offensive line. I just think their talent are superior than Daniel Jones. But if Daniel Jones has time, I think he could be a relevant quarterback. And I don't believe if we do go on a stretch, let's say we're outside the top 15, that he will still be our quarterback next year, and we're going to invest in the offensive line for Daniel Jones. We have the pieces. We have Jalen Hyatt. I think we can get a wide receiver as well in this class. Our defense has been great. I mean,
you just lost Leonard Williams, but yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really excited for our team down the road, but I'm also excited to get Caleb Williams or Drake May. So Daniel Jones, I do believe, could be a good fantasy quarterback, even if he goes to another team, in my opinion.
I think if you have him in Dynasty, you kind of have to ride this train out. I mean, if you sell him, you're definitely not getting anything very valuable.
Yeah.
So it's worth holding on to him to see what would happen.
And he's been injured as well, so
yeah,
it's hard to talk about.
This last tier here, I would have Desmond Ridder. My least favorite quarterback to watch in the NFL it has to be Kenny Pickett. It has to be. It is really rough watching this guy play football. I love watching Baker. Just wish there was some long-term security. Got Gardner Minshew here. I'll explain in a second. And actually, let me take that back about Kenny Pickett, because the least favorite quarterback for me to watch is actually Mac Jones.
Right.
It's a competition between Kenny Pickett and Mac Jones. Who's going to make you want to throw up in your mouth the most? But Baker Mayfield's playing well, man. He's got that mojo. He could play the Bucs out of quarterback contention for the draft. And then as far as Gardner Minshew, I know this is a 1-year rental right now, but if you're a win now team, go and send a 3rd-round pick for Gardner Minshew as your quarterback too in a Superflex league. I mean, I picked him up in our home Superflex league off the waiver wire, and he's kind of serving as that guy between bye weeks. But if an injury were to happen, I know I can rely on him for about 15 to 25 points in any game. And I think there's a scenario in which Gardner Minshew could play himself into a starting role next year. Not to say that he would be the answer for a team, but he could be a bridge quarterback for an organization this time next year. He's shown that he's, a competent quarterback. I mean, imagine if the Washington didn't have Sam Howell. You could easily see Minshew being their starter next year.
Yeah.
What if the Steelers do want to move on from Pickett and they don't know what to do? What if the Falcons want to move on from Ridder and they just want someone who can throw the ball down the field? What if the Patriots? There's so many names out there. The Vikings. So I think he is someone that could play himself into a role, or into a starting job rather, and he's very cheap. So yeah.
Yeah, look, everyone here kind of makes sense. So one I'm really disappointed on is Kenny Pickett. I think he gave us all the Ukadukes in preseason. He was looking great. They were all running with first teams. Obviously, they were going against second strings. I just thought he was going to be better the second half of the season last year. One of the highest passer ratings according to PFF, but that's clearly not the case. Coming into this year, it's going to be interesting to see how this team moves forward or how he closes in the second half of the season. Surprisingly enough, they're 4-3.
Yeah.
So
no thanks to him
and
at all.
Yeah, it's been defensive. Can he win a string of games? The talent is there. I'm just not sure what's happening. I don't know if it's Matt Canada and the play calling, or what. But I still believe in Kenny Pickett a little bit. You got to ride the wave like DJ, and I agree with everything else. I think Mac Jones is done. The Patriots could be in contention to get a top quarterback in this NFL draft. If the season ended today, they had the number 5 pick in the NFL draft. So, and I don't see them improving. I don't see them winning too many games. So, it's interesting. with all these teams. I'm very excited for everyone. And yeah, love the list though. Love the list. I think all makes sense.
Again, it could look like an awful list in 3 weeks' time, but this is where I currently stand. And obviously, there's a little bit of projection, and there's a little bit of what do we know now kind of mixed in there. So
yeah.
But I mean, yeah, if you have, I know there are a couple people who have Kirk Cousins and their win now teams, and like, who do I trade for? I really don't think Kirk Cousins is going to get you a Russell Wilson or a Geno or even a Dak or a Howe. You know, I don't think that's going to happen. But if you can turn Cousins into one of those players, I think it's worth doing if you're on a run.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't know if Kirk is going to... I think he comes back to a backup role.
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, they're 4-4, so I don't think that this team is going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. So,
yeah.
And also, he's got no contract, so we don't even know if he'll be with the team. But if he enters free agency, he's going to start for an NFL team. I have no doubts in my mind.
Yeah, I think the bigger question is who.
Yeah, that's going to have to wait for free agency, but
that makes sense.
That's it for today, guys. I have no idea how long this video is, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. You know, we talk about this every once in a while, but if you want updated rankings for Dynasty, we actually do offer those in the season. That's over on the Flock Fantasy website. You can use our promo code LAND to show us some support, but also get updated rankings for Dynasty 1 quarterback Superflex leagues. We've got community rankings over there now, which is really cool.
Yep.
You guys there's over 10,000 plus people who are every day making these rankings updated, which is really, really cool. It's a great data source for community rankings. Great articles over there and more. So go check that out. We appreciate y'all, and we'll see you in the next video. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.